in our last video, we ended up with the Zimmerman letter, and we were talking about how the foreign minister of Germany sent this to Mexico to try to pull Mexico into the, to attack us and into the war and get us preoccupied with Mexico, and they're like, we'll help you, Mexico, and we'll do that. So once it was intercepted by the Allies, really the British, and once the British let our government know about it, there was just, and it became public, there was just a war fever in the country, that this could not be allowed. And so this was the final straw that caused us to enter the war. So now we're entering the war because of the Zimmerman telegram. And as we began to send troops over there, our troops were fresh, our troops were on the ball, they hadn't been fighting for 3 years. And so one of the troops or groups that we sent over there was a group from Harlem. And they were called the Harlem Hellfighters. And they were so distinguished on the battlefield that they were recognized all over France with medals and parades. And when these gentlemen were treated like heroes, and they were heroes in France, in Europe, but not here in America. When they came back to the States after being declared heroes, they again faced the terrible discrimination that was pronounced in our country. Once America came in, the Allies were growing very weary. You know, in some of those major battles where they would lose 500,000 men, 1 million men over 5 years, or 5 months rather. You know, they were losing a whole generation of men to fight. And so these countries are getting really weary. So when we came in, we brought fresh supplies, fresh troops, and because of that, America's entry into the war really turned the tide. So we were coming in as Russia was leaving, it collapsed, and we were just the fresh troops. We were the ones that made the difference. Now, after the war ended, and towards the end of the war, another thing that really impacted the armies in this world war was a flu outbreak worldwide, and millions died. Millions and millions died. So that depleted the army, that depleted our American soldiers. We had terrible outbreaks throughout our military, and so that also was a contributing factor to kind of slow down the war. Here again is some more pictures of the flu pandemic. Some of these pictures are you know, people, policemen in our big cities in our country having to wear masks. So this flu epidemic was profound in our country as well as across the world. Russia drops out of the war. Her economy is weakened. There are massive loss of life because there weren't enough weapons. They didn't have the equipment, and we talked about this in earlier videos. And then there was a huge gap between the very, very wealthy, the ones that controlled the government, and the peasants, the millions who were poor. And it was the peasants who were being killed in large numbers in the army as they fought. And it was the peasants who said, we have to end this government. So, at the end, both sides were losing too many soldiers. And after 4 years with all these horrifics, the world has never seen a war like this. These horrific numbers of people killed. Russia drops out. America joins the war. Germany is running out of resources. Austria-Hungary is pretty defeated. And neither side saw that a victory was going to happen soon. And so by 1918, they realized this is futile to keep fighting this way. It is impacting, destroying both our countries. So let's figure out how to end this. And they came up with an armistice. Now, an armistice is not a winner or loser. It is just both sides agreeing to stop fighting. And so the armistice was declared on November 11th at 11 a.m. And so it's the 11th month, the 11th day at 11 o'clock in the morning, and the war is over. Both sides have decided we're going to end the fighting, we're done. And with that armistice, both sides put their weapons down. But now, just because you stop the actual fighting doesn't mean there's not great resentment among both sides. This was a war unlike any other war, and there were 9 million dead. There were families that lost most of the males within that generation, fathers, brothers. The amount of dead and wounded was unseen, unprecedented. And here is, and I want you to really look at this, the percentage of mobilized troops to the number of casualties, and that includes being wounded and killed. And if you send 12 million people to fight and over 3/4 of them are killed or wounded, that is a huge impact on your country. Here you can see in Austria-Hungary towards the end, when I said it was mostly Germany doing a lot of the fighting, it was because 90% of the Austrian-Hungary soldiers were either wounded or dead. So with these kind of massive losses, this was another reason when I said they were tired that they pushed to end the war. So in summary, there are 8 main points that are very important for you to know. These are going, obviously these are going to be the questions when this video stops that I'm going to ask you to answer in this video. How did the war start? Why was it a world war? How was the war fought in the West and Eastern Europe? 2 different methods of fighting. What were some of the technologies and their effect in the war? When, how, and why America entered the war? And how did the war finally end? And with that, we're done with our videos on World War I.